November 23rd, 1950. Across America, families crowded around heavy mahogany tables, carving turkeys and sharing holiday laughter, completely oblivious to the silent, frozen catastrophe gathering right outside their window panes. Within hours, an invisible atmospheric monster would shatter everyday security, turning a traditional family holiday into a lifelong scar. This is the harrowing, forgotten story of the Great Appalachian Storm. To grasp this magnitude, step back into the post-war American dream. The nation was basking in a golden era of domestic calm, healing from the deep wounds of global conflict. Thanksgiving was a sacred pillar of cultural stability. Passenger rails were jammed to capacity. Highways hummed with vintage sedans, carrying grandparents to dinner, and kitchen windows frosted over from hours of pie baking. Yet lurking miles above, in the upper troposphere, a freak atmospheric anomaly was brewing, one that rudimentary weather instruments were entirely blind to. As those families bowed their heads in gratitude that Thursday afternoon, the very air around them was preparing to turn to solid ice. That Thursday morning began with the comforting music of mid-century life. Children laughing down carpeted hallways, cookware clanking, and radio programs whispering warmth into cozy living rooms. But high above the clouds, an immense freezing trap was snapping shut. A colossal ridge of high-pressure air had planted itself like an immovable monolith over eastern Canada, sealing the fate of the populace below. A powerful polar vortex was driving bitter pulses of Arctic air southward, while a moisture-heavy subtropical stream flowed north from the Gulf of Mexico. Typically, these systems balance out, but that massive blocking high acted like an unyielding concrete dam. This blockage compelled opposing air masses to smash head-on right over the spine of the Appalachian chain. Temperatures diverged by up to 70 degrees over remarkably short distances. Because 1950, forecasters relied solely on sparse ground barometers, they essentially flew blind, while nature forged an unprecedented continental blunder. By afternoon, a light, steady rain started tapping against window glass across the Midwest. To citizens inside, wrapped in warmth, it felt like ordinary late November grayness. People buttoned their wool overcoats a bit tighter, totally unaware that contemporary technology was completely helpless against what was coming. Across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, youngsters watched drizzle slick down neighborhood streets, wondering about evening football games. Morning newspapers had published cheerful holiday inserts, dismissing early rain notices. Inside, families tuned into CBS and NBC networks for holiday radio dramas, placing complete trust in normal daily routines. Meanwhile, ground barometers plunged downward with an urgency usually reserved for maritime hurricane warnings. The air grew heavy with a metallic dampness and the scent of incoming frost, happening so quietly that virtually no one realized they stood on the edge of history. Then the daylight vanished and the trap sprang shut. In Chicago, gentle rain morphed into furious, blinding snow, dragging temperatures down to a brutal, bone-aching zero within hours. This was a vicious, freezing strike that cracked interior walls, locked automobile motors solid, and shattered the cozy comfort of countless homes overnight. Pittsburgh, thermometers plummeted over 40 degrees in less than an hour, turning standing puddles into instant sheets of glass. Automobile blocks, running primitive antifreeze, ruptured from the sudden thermal shock, leaving vehicles abandoned right in traffic lanes like dead metal sculptures. Indoor heating systems found themselves entirely overwhelmed. Basement coal furnaces roared non-stop, yet rooms furthest from the hearths turned into literal iceboxes. Water pipes running through exterior walls froze solid and burst, flooding ceilings and ruining holiday tables before families could even clear them. By dawn, the outside world had essentially vanished. A screaming gale drove snow sideways with such immense force that it packed window frames tight and buried cars beneath massive white mounds. Households woke up to find entry doors sealed shut by walls of ice and snow, trapping families in sudden isolation. Snowfall totals were historic, piling drifts up to 20 feet high against rural farmsteads. The Pennsylvania Turnpike turned into a linear parking lot, where thousands of holiday motorists were stranded inside their vehicles, burning spare tire rubber, seat stuffing, and cardboard packaging in makeshift cans just to survive. Rural districts faced an even grayer reality. Milk transport trucks slid into embankments, postal carriers abandoned routes, and local schools and town halls turned into impromptu refugee centers. The winds generated complete whiteout conditions, where visibility dropped to absolute zero. Yet snowfall was only part of the nightmare. High within the central mountain ranges, continuous freezing rain encased every living branch and utility wire in inches of heavy, destructive glass. As century-old trees snapped like matchsticks under the unbearable load, entire districts were plunged into an eerie, suffocating darkness. Appalachian ridges endured an onslaught of supercooled precipitation, covering everything in an armor of transparent ice up to 4 inches thick. High-voltage transmission towers collapsed under the torsional weight like toothpicks, while rural telephone poles snapped in sequential domino lines across entire counties. The forest's soundscape was hauntingly terrifying. The continuous pistol-shot fractures of giant oak and pine branches cracking under the ice echoed through valleys day and night. Human settlements realized they were cut off electronically and thermally by the total collapse of regional energy infrastructure. While mountain ranges froze, the eastern coastline was battered by roaring oceanic tempests. Hurricane-force gales drove massive storm surges tens of feet high straight into seaside communities, ripping entire boardwalks from their pilings and washing vacation homes out into the churning dark sea. Along the Jersey Shore, Long Island, and Virginia's Outer Banks, the storm materialized as an aggressive maritime nor'easter, packing sustained winds well past 90 miles per hour. Tidal water rushed inland with staggering velocity, submerging coastal roads, smashing commercial fishing fleets against seawalls, and turning beach cottages into floating debris. Coast Guard crews sprang into action under brutal conditions, launching small surf boats into mountainous, freezing breakers to rescue stranded lighthouse keepers. The contrast between high mountain blizzards and coastal sea tempests demonstrated the immense, terrifying geographical reach of the storm. Deprived of electricity and modern heating, families clustered together by the faint, sputtering glow of single candles, melting snow inside old iron pots just to have water. Utility crews fought a losing battle against falling ice that kept destroying repairs as fast as they finished them, leaving terrified towns shivering in the dark for weeks. Domestic life turned into an endurance test. With electric refrigerators out of commission, households dragged Thanksgiving leftovers onto windowsills and porches to keep them naturally frozen. Fireplaces and wood stoves became the central focus of existence, consuming old furniture and scrap lumber just to keep living rooms above freezing. Outside, utility linemen faced hazards that tested human limits, climbing glazed wooden poles coated in slick ice while sub-zero gales whipped their harnesses. Crews worked around the clock, though falling tree limbs miles away kept tripping circuits and extending blackouts. Yet, amid this frozen despair, the truest strength of the human heart awoke. Ordinary citizens stepped out into the blinding white to rescue one another. Farmers harnessed workhorses to wooden sleighs, the only machinery capable of moving through towering drifts to deliver bread and medicine to elderly neighbors who hadn't seen another face in days. Across rural valleys in West Virginia and Maryland, motorized transport was totally useless. Cars sat buried beneath snowbanks, and snowplows were trapped. Farmers dragged wooden sleighs from barns, hitching strong draft horses to forged trails across deep fields to reach isolated homesteads. These emergency relief runs saved countless lives. Neighbors shared rations of flour, canned goods, and heating fuel. Doctors strapped on snowshoes to make house calls through unbroken wilderness, delivering insulin and assisting births by kerosene lamplight, proving mid-century community bonds were unbreakable. The crisis grew so severe that normal rescue vehicles lay abandoned and helpless. Military tanks had to rumble down municipal streets just to carve open paths and pull trapped public buses out of drifts. Brave rescuers clawed through miles of white wilderness to reach starving families who had spent days living on nothing more than half a jar of jam. State governors activated the National Guard as emergencies were declared. In urban hubs like Pittsburgh and Cleveland, heavy Sherman tanks and tracked personnel carriers were deployed to clear thoroughfares, haul medical supplies, and evacuate patients needing critical care. Aviation rescue operations faced equal perils. Military helicopters flew hazardous supply drops over isolated mountain towns, navigating low cloud ceilings, severe icing, and heavy downdrafts. These drops were often the sole connection trapped citizens had to the outside world. But tragedy touched some doors that rescue could never reach. In a quiet West Virginia community, 4-year-old Johnny slipped from a bridge into the churning, freezing river below. Without a single second of hesitation, his 11-year-old brother, Farrell, threw himself into the icy torrent to save him. Neither boy ever returned home, leaving a permanent, heartbreaking scar on the community. Individual human losses hit the hardest. While walking near a swollen, ice-choked creek, fed by rapid thaws, young Johnny lost his footing on the slick embankment and fell into the dark current. Farrell, displaying bravery far beyond his 11 years, dove straight into the lethal water to try and pull his younger brother to safety. Both children were swept away under sheets of floating river ice before emergency teams arrived. The region mourned their passing for months, erecting a local memorial as a permanent reminder of the ultimate sacrifices made during those dark Thanksgiving days. Out of this immense wreckage, a quiet scientific revolution was born. Looking at the devastation, researchers realized humanity could no longer rely on guesswork and blind optimism. Feeding the raw data of this exact 1950 disaster into one of the world's very first electronic computers, scientists successfully tracked the storm after the fact, proving future tragedies could, finally, be anticipated before striking. Following the disaster, meteorologists at Princeton University and the U.S. Weather Bureau faced a stark truth. Their forecasting methods were dangerously outdated. Predicting massive continental weather systems required computational power far beyond human mental capacity. Shortly after, pioneering researchers fed historical, barometrical, and temperature data from the event into the ENIAC-1 of the earliest digital computers. For the first time in history, a machine successfully modeled and tracked a major weather front mathematically, laying the foundation for modern computer models and early warning systems. Every modern weather alert on our devices, every satellite radar map, and every updated building code we rely on today traces its roots directly back to the freezing lessons of November 1950. A vulnerable nation was forced to reform itself, ensuring that Americans would never again be caught totally defenseless against nature. The infrastructure failures exposed by the blizzard triggered sweeping legislative and engineering overhauls across the East. Building regulations were tightened to mandate stronger structural load capacities for snow and ice on roofs, transmission lines, and bridges. Electric utilities invested heavily in strengthening power grids, burying lines in high-risk zones, and forming mutual aid networks. Furthermore, civil defense agencies were restructured. State governments realized winter storms could match the disruption of wartime attacks or hurricanes, prompting coordinated emergency protocols combining local police, National Guard elements, and civilian rescue groups into unified regional frameworks. For those who lived through it, however, the storm was never just a history lesson. It was embedded in their bones. Survivors spent the remainder of their lives keeping extra blankets in linen closets and extra food in pantries, carrying the quiet awareness of how fast the world can change. Above all, they never forgot the face of the neighbor who shoveled their walk when everything else was gone. Decades after the snow melted and power grids recovered, the psychological imprint of the storm remained etched into collective memory. Grandparents passed down cautionary tales to their children about the Thanksgiving the world froze, instilling deep respect for nature's sudden fury. Pantries stayed stocked with extra provisions, battery, radios, and emergency candles. Yet, alongside this caution, lived a profound sense of gratitude and resilience. Shared trauma forged lifelong friendships among neighbors who had dug each other out of massive drifts, turning a terrifying catastrophe into a timeless masterclass in human compassion. History is full of hidden turning points, moments where ordinary people intersected with violent natural forces, altering science, infrastructure, and human bonds forever. The Great Appalachian Storm of November 1950 stands as a monument to both our fragility against the elements and our relentless capacity to rebuild, adapt, and care for each other when darkness closes in. Have you ever heard about the Great Appalachian Storm before? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.